one of my oldest and dearest friends with whom I have such communion on every level. We literally live 3,000 miles away, and I will have a thought and call her or Skype her, and she says, you know what I was thinking this morning? And I said, yeah, I do. Because I often do know what she's thinking. And I don't know why that's true. It's been true as long as we have known each other. So I had an epiphany about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I went just out of, because somebody else wanted me to go to see Slumdog Millionaire, and I had an epiphany. I went, wow, this is an amazing movie that is layered and intense, and I feel like I live in Bombay, and I understand something about the Indian experience best I can as a non-Indian person, and I just, you know, and I thought, boy, I cannot wait to share this discovery of a way of making movies, of a place I had never seen a movie about in this particular way. I just couldn't wait to share this epiphany. Janet wasn't much moved by it. She thought it was fun. And I was so, you have to have my epiphany. No, I don't. No, I don't. I couldn't understand why Kate Winslet didn't win the Academy Award for Revolutionary Road instead of that Dumb Reader movie. Everybody else in the world, you know, thought the Reader. You don't owe me Revolutionary Road. I had a movie experience in it. You don't have to. They're personal. So, the last quotation I want to share with you came from our vice president, who everybody makes fun of. And some of it deservedly. But this is what Joe Biden said in a hearing, a Senate hearing, when he was still a senator. And they had called Vice President Cheney, previous vice president, to testify about Iraq and why we had entered the war, so forth. Because the world was trying to figure out why it happened, should it have happened, all the things that you all know very well. And Joe Biden said this after the vice president's answer. Joe Biden, who was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee that was having this particular hearing, said this. My impression is that the vice president thinks, meaning Cheney, my impression is that the vice president thinks that if we decimate their nation, somehow the Iraqis are going to have an epiphany of peaceful coexistence among warring sects and embrace our vision of democracy as we have known it, and not born of their own experience and characters. Such epiphanies do not occur. So, it's time for us to fold the tent. I want to answer any questions that you have. I want you to go out and allow the epiphanies of life to roll over you. They are the most, no, they aren't the most. They're a vital part of what proves that we're human. And what proves that anything can happen.
I just want to say, when you were talking about piggybacking on epiphanies, and you sort of downplayed the stapler remover thing a little bit. When you first said that, I thought, wow, that's so cool that you could transfer that technology to every tool, every lesson, every perspective in the world. Everything, any procedure has a different use to it than we might know. I'm like, that's really powerful.
And it is in this moment of intuitive clarity that those other uses become, you know. Viagra was a blood pressure drug. That's why it was developed. But guys would take it for their blood pressure and they would go, something else going on here. You know, those were epiphany moments for most fellas, you know. And that, it can be anything. It truly is. And what's important is that perspective. That if I am willing to allow myself to see something differently, I can. This is why I would like to go give this little talk to the senators and the members of Congress. Because it is not about that or that. It is about, what if we kind of listen to everything, open our hearts and minds, and we might find a center point so much more interesting and better, because there's always another application, another way to do it, another more enlightened way to apply ourselves to anything, government included. So that's, I'm happy that so the little staple remover reminded you of that. Yes.
I'm just going to posit this and see what your thoughts are about this. I imagine Hitler standing in front of thousands of young German men and saying the things that he said. And I imagine many of these men standing out there in the audience and going, yes.
Well, clearly.
You know? And so, can someone have an epiphany about a better way to do harm?
Sure. Even that.
So you would call that an epiphany, that moment of, oh, of course, yes, I never thought of it that way, but this is the problem.
Well, Hitler is always our favorite argument to debunk anything. Let's go to Hitler, because, because if you can make it apply to Hitler, but it does. Because here's what Hitler did. Probably the ultimate example of human cruelty, although I happened to see a documentary on HBO called Reporter about Nicholas Kristof, reporter for the New York Times, and when you get a gander at what's going on in Rwanda and in Congo, it's like, geez, who took a page out of Hitler's book? And of course, Hitler took a page out of the Armenian genocide book, which is still denied in the world, and yet they keep digging up the bodies, and they just took a page from some other genocide. So, then the question really becomes, is there a better way, is there an epiphany we can have about living with our differences? That we don't have to be right or wrong, better than, that we are the chosen and you are not. Could we have an epiphany in human nature that says we no longer have to be in conflict and defense of what we each are that may be different from what someone else is? Could we give up the battle of the sexes, for example? Well, men, women say, and then men say, women, like all we are two genders of the same species. Could we get past that ingrained human idea that I am different and thus better than you? Because that's what Hitler traded on. Now, in the course of doing some of the great evil of the world, he also put a nation back together that was fragmented entirely and it had lost its center. Now, he put it back together around very wrong things, but what was great is the Germans managed to retain that without having to retain Hitler. They managed to find a way to retain a national identity and leave out of it all the things, hopefully, that Hitler had put in to galvanize. Now, I always approach this subject because you cannot say that Hitler did anything positive in this world. But I want to epiphanize all of you.